The late British Queen Elizabeth II will be laid to rest on Monday. World leaders are expected to descend into London to attend the service at Westminster Abbey. South Africa will be represented by President Cyril Ramaphosa. Her passing has seen an outpouring of condolences from far and wide. Kaelihle Kumalo has more.
This was the last public appearance of Queen Elizabeth II as she appointed Liz Truss as United Kingdom's Prime Minister. The following day, the Queen's doctors were worried about her health and she was placed under medical supervision at a Scottish summer home, the Balmoral Castle. Her children had to rush to Scotland to be next to the longest reigning monarch in the British history. And then the most feared moment, the story broke that the British Queen had died.
We are all devastated by the news that we have just heard from Balmoral. The death of Her Majesty the Queen is a huge shock to the nation and to the world. Queen Elizabeth II was the rock on which modern Britain was built.
I speak to you today with feelings of profound sorrow. Throughout her life, Her Majesty the Queen, my beloved mother, was an inspiration, an example to me and to all my family. And we owe her the most heartfelt debt any family could owe to their mother, for her love, affection, guidance, understanding, and example. Queen Elizabeth was a life well lived.
It was a somber moment as the news of the passing of the Queen spread across the world, prompting other countries to declare days of mourning and flags fly at half-mast. Charles was then officially proclaimed as the new king. It was a solemn occasion attended by the Accession Council.
I am deeply aware of this great inheritance and of the duties and heavy responsibilities of sovereignty, which have now passed to me. In taking up these responsibilities, I shall strive to follow the inspiring example I have been set in upholding constitutional government and to seek the peace, harmony, and prosperity of the peoples of these islands and of the Commonwealth realms and territories throughout the world.
The new monarch had to address the British Parliament.
As I stand before you today, I cannot help but feel the weight of history which surrounds us and which reminds us of the vital parliamentary traditions to which members of both houses dedicate yourselves with such personal commitment for the betterment of us all. Parliament is the living and breathing instrument of our democracy.
The Queen's coffin was moved for 6 hours to Edinburgh at the Holyrood Palace and then St. Giles Cathedral, and mourners lined up the streets to honour the late monarch.
We've travelled from Durham, and you pay that ultimate respect to someone who's led us, guided us with humanity and courage, and then to see her like lying in state like that, just it's the awe of it all.
Deeply moving, solemn, emotional. Yeah, it was a very special moment.
On the go since 4 o'clock this morning, and we started queuing about 8 o'clock down at the Meadows to get these wristbands to get in. But it's been worth it. It's been worth it. It's a memory we'll never forget.
And the royal family members went to the cathedral to pay homage to the late Queen. The Queen's remains had to be taken to London's iconic Buckingham Palace, where multitudes had gathered. The monarch has been lying in state for 5 days, and people flocked to Westminster Hall to witness the occasion. Some were lucky enough to make it to the hall and bid farewell to the late monarch. Kaelihle Kumalo, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, for more on this, we're now joined by London-based journalist Jon Offei-Ansah, who is the founder and publisher of Africa Briefing, a Pan-African news magazine. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. It's been quite a week for the British public. We've been watching with interest from other parts of the world, and I would imagine many Britons in the diaspora. But in the UK, just look back at the week for us. And what it's been in terms of coming to terms with the end of the Elizabethan era.
Yes, I mean, her passing, on the 8th of September came as a shock, though, considering her advanced years and her frailty, it still came as a shock. Because 2 days earlier, on the 6th of September, she had just accepted the resignation of the former Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, and asked his successor, Liz Truss, to form a new government. Right? I mean, the last pictures, all of us saw of the late Queen was, with the walking stick, with the handbag, dangling from her left arm, shaking the hands of Liz Truss. Though we all saw that she was frail, but still, the death, came as a bit of a shock. We were not expecting. Most British people were not expecting her to pass so soon.
We saw people line up in long queues in Edinburgh and even longer queues in London. Does this talk to just how much the Queen was loved, admired, revered, and regarded?
Absolutely. Look, you take 10 British, 9 out of them are staunch royalists. They held the Queen in the highest esteem. They loved her, revered her, and everything. Okay, she was a symbol, of Britain. I mean, people travel from around the world just to view Buckingham Palace. People travel from around the world just to see, the trooping of the colour and all that. So she was, apart from her being, let's say, the magnet, or say the magnet. She also, held, the people of Britain together. It doesn't matter whether you are conservative, you are Labour, you are Social Democrat, or whatever. She held everybody together. She was a symbol of Britain, of Great Britain, right? So look, so her death, is being mourned, it's being felt by just about every British citizen, in the UK.
Why do you think it is that the Queen, if you just say that, everybody knows that it was Queen Elizabeth II? It doesn't matter where you are in the world, and there's royalty everywhere. What was it about her and maybe the institution of the House of Windsor, the British monarchy, that is able to gather so many people in the way that it does?
You see, it's not always what you do. It's more the way you do it. Okay? Look, I recall when Princess Diana died. She was then holidaying at Balmoral, in Scotland, where she passed. And people, most Britons, were expecting her to show some grief or whatever, or to come down immediately to London, to mourn her, which she didn't, right? So there was a bit of an outcry against her and the royal family as a whole. But then, since last week, it emerged that, look, her priority was to comfort the two children, the then Prince William and Prince Harry, who were about in their early teens. So that was her concern. So when she eventually came down to London and addressed the nation, right, against the background of well-wishers, sympathizers who were mourning Diana, the tide turned. So it's usually, and again, people thought she was aloof, but then she was so, gracious in whatever she did. And those who knew her realized that, look, this woman had a very, very, very good sense of humor. She was a good mimic. She could mimic people just like that. But it didn't, show to the general British public. But then everything that she did was gracious. She held the royal family together, the monarchy together. She was a very good matriarch, not just apart from being the queen. She was a very good matriarch to her family. Her children, the grandchildren, the cousins, the first cousin, second cousin, so on and so forth. So, the way she went about her duties, the way she went about things, actually endeared her. And again, she created this kind of sort of a mystique around, the royalty, around the monarchy, around the royal family, right? That all this endeared her a lot to the British public.
On the throne for 7 decades, 70 years, and Britain changed significantly in that time. The face of Britain in particular. When you walk around London now, you genuinely have a sense of the United Nations there, people from all over the world. Have people that have adopted the United Kingdom also adopted the Queen?
Yes. I'm an immigrant. I'm originally from Ghana, and there are many more like me living in the UK today. And the majority of us, accepted the Queen, held her in the highest esteem, and are still mourning, her demise. So it's not, the outpour of grief, the empathy, the sympathy, whatever, the sense of loss, it's not restricted to the indigenous, British alone, but to all of us. Be you Asian, be you African, be you Chinese, be you Japanese, be whatever, everybody feels a loss.
What kind of conversations have been happening during the course of this past week? Conversations on talk radio stations. What have the people in the UK been saying and talking about?
Well, it's very varied. Very varied. Look, some of the conversations center around Prince Harry, who with his wife decided to move away from royal duties, relocate to America, and even just today. Look, Prince Harry served in the forces for 10 years. He had to, he was in Afghanistan for 2 tours of duty, but because he led the royal family, all his military titles or whatever were stripped off. And people were asking, look, would he be allowed to wear the ceremonial military uniform to mourn, his grandmother? It was a bit of a debate. And at the last minute, it was decided that today, he and Prince William and the others and Prince Andrew would wear their military uniforms. And this was something that was well received because before the passing of the Queen, public opinion was turning against Prince Harry a bit. But with the demise, and the developments, people have come to accept that, look here, it is fair, only fair for Prince Harry also to wear the ceremonial military uniform. Again, some of the conversation centers around the new king himself, King Charles III, right? Because before he became king, just last week, he was very vocal. Look, he was aware of environmental issues long before it became, a global issue, right? In fact, it was because of that I got to know that the sprays, whether it was a deodorant spray or whatever, the canisters contained CFC, and that the CFC
He's going to toe the line. Jon, it's always great talking to you. Thank you so much indeed. Perhaps we can catch up for a final look after the funeral. But thank you so much for joining us this evening.